Hello and welcome to the Digestible Podcast. I'm Stacy,
I'm Melissa.
and here at Digestible, we give you the information you want in the perfect amount of time for your busy life. And we make sure the information is easily digestible. Get it?
So, if you're just joining us, today is our second episode of our conversation with Ken and Roger of Fruiting Bodies. They are a company that makes and sells medicinal mushroom products. And in the first episode, we discussed the 5 mushrooms that are most impactful and are most of their products. And in this episode, we're talking about the importance of knowing where the mushrooms come from, so sourcing, the quality of the mushroom products so you know what to look for. And then towards the end, we talk about dosing and delivery systems. So if you're more interested in just learning about the dosing and what to buy, you can skip ahead. But if you're just as interested in getting the best quality mushrooms out there and how that's done, please listen to the entire episode.
And just a reminder, Ken and Roger have given us a discount code on their website, which is fruitingbodies.co. And your discount code is digestible20 in all caps. DIGESTIBLE 20. I find this episode so interesting because when it comes to medicinal functional mushrooms, it's not just about what product you're buying. It's about where the mushrooms come from, how they're actually extracted in order to make sure that they're actually effective. So just because there are mushroom products everywhere right now doesn't mean you're actually going to get the benefits of them if they're not extracted properly. And so the episode is a little longer than normal for us, but it's really worth a listen if you're interested in incorporating mushrooms into your everyday life.
So enjoy this episode, episode 2, with Ken and Roger of Fruiting Bodies.
Welcome back, listeners. Today we have Ken and Roger from Fruiting Bodies back for episode 2 to teach us how to take the mushrooms and where we get them from and how we make sure we're getting the best possible products and outcomes. Last time we started off with a little backstory on Roger, and today we're going to let Ken tell us how he got into mushrooms.
Thank you, Stacy. Well, actually, 26 years ago, I got sober from drugs and alcohol, and in recovery and in becoming healthy, mind, body, spirit, soul. In this journey, I learned about holistically everything affects everything, and what I eat, what I take, what's in my environment. Everyone and everything I'm connected to, what I think about, all of that affects me. And that led me to wanting to learn more about growing my own food and medicine, because I learned about all the contaminants and the types of food. I was not healthy. I didn't eat healthy. I would exercise and work out. I just wasn't that healthy. So this became my health journey, and I started learning about regenerative ag. I took different courses, and soil science basically blew my mind. And when I realized all the things that went into life, how everything balances, and it was like it changed it. It was like a spiritual experience. And that led me to learning about mushrooms and realizing how important mushrooms are to life as we know it. That led me to eventually, I got into urban agriculture. I was running a nonprofit sustainability company in Chicago, which did recycling, composting, and urban ag, and a number of other things. And I got to meet a lot of chefs, and because we sold our produce from our farms to these chefs, I got to meet them, talk to them. I eventually started Chicago Mushroom Company, started growing mushrooms for chefs. It was amazing, and that kind of led to work with Paul Stamets for a little bit in Washington, and Peter McCoy, and I read and listen to everything I can related to mushrooms and health, and I listened to a podcast that Roger was on, and heard Roger tell his story, and he really cared about people and the science that he was using. He was talking about like potency and concentrates and the ways that he was doing it. He was like not cutting any corners. He was doing everything he could to produce the absolute best products, regardless of how much time, effort, or price, or what it took to do it, so he could get people product that actually worked for them. And it was like, I was like, well, I want to work. Like, let's combine companies. I want to work with you, and let's work together to bring this to the world. And that's kind of my story and history with mushrooms. And now I'm in my mid 60s. I feel incredibly healthy, sharp, active. I feel like I'm in my 30s, and I know that mushrooms have played a big part of that. But getting to work with Roger and having passion and purpose to leave something better for this world, do something that will make a difference in people's lives, that keeps me young, because every single day I can't wait to get up and see what we can do to further help people and get products that actually will work for people that need them into their hands. So it's just been mushrooms have like changed my life in so many ways. I think this is one of the most important things when you're looking for a mushroom product and this is what we do a lot of, is educate people on what to look for, the questions to ask. One of the worst things and saddest things I hear is somebody that took a mushroom product from some other company and didn't get benefits, didn't feel anything, didn't notice anything, and said, oh, this stuff doesn't work. And I'm so sad, because if I take something and it doesn't have what I need, I'm not going to want to take it again. And these can be so beneficial for people's lives and health. And so that's why it's really important for me in this episode, when we get to talk and educate people on really what to look for, so that when you are looking to take a product, or you hear some ad and get something on social media about some mushroom coffee or something else, that for sure what to look for and why. The other thing, because I was part of the Chicago Mushroom Company, was about uh, bioremediation. We were looking at cleaning up some toxic soils in Chicago using mushrooms. So mushrooms are bioaccumulators, and they will take up everything in the environment that it's grown in, that's around, even in the air. And so it's really important to know this when you're taking a mushroom product. If you're going to take something every day, you want to make sure you're not adding heavy metals, pesticides, arsenic, or other toxins into your body with something that you think is going to help you.
That's great. Thank you. So tell us, where do your mushrooms come from? How are they sourced? Are they grown like organically, regeneratively? Do they get imported? Like what are we looking for, and where the mushrooms are coming from?
So, like Ken was saying, with these mushrooms, they're bioaccumulators. So where they're grown environmentally, or what they're grown on, the substrate that the mushrooms are grown on, is very important. For instance, if you're out wild collecting mushrooms or foraging, if you're walking along train tracks, maybe in the woods or something, and the train tracks go down a hill, and you're finding mushrooms at the bottom of that hill, might not be the best place to kind of forage those mushrooms because of the runoff from the train tracks. So environmental specifications are very important when it comes to mushrooms. Everyone we work with is very near and dear to our heart. Our suppliers are specifically, I would say, medium to large scale cultivators here in the United States. And with that being said, everything we also use and grow, utilize, is also 100% organic and 100% vegan. And then one of the things you mentioned or had asked Stacy was, whether they're imported. And our big thing is supporting USA cultivators of mushrooms here and trying to build up that industry here within the United States. One of the unfortunate kind of byproducts that we've seen from the mass importation of these mushrooms, depending on where they're coming from, is some of these countries don't have, I would say, the same standards or regulations when it comes to importing a dried product. For instance, there's a loophole where products are USDA certified organic that are being imported, say, from China, And unfortunately, there's really no regulating service that's watching this. They just have to meet certain standards, like, yes, our facility does this, 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 and they give them that stamp of approval. And in my opinion, that's a huge red flag. And it's not just mushrooms, it's a lot of supplements on the market, arguably even food that's coming in that's certified organic. It's very important that these mushrooms are grown on organic substrates. And then we also really heavily rely on the fact that we're not creating such a large carbon footprint when it comes to importing different goods and needs. But for our business, that's pretty much our MO. We're trying to be as sustainable and as ethic as possible without utilizing some of these unfortunate loopholes that a lot of companies are utilizing when it comes to not only supplements but mushrooms in general. The reason that we really promote organic and why we only source organic mushrooms is specifically what Ken was talking about before with the heavy metals, the pesticides, contaminants. It's very important to make sure that you're looking for third-party testing on mushrooms, and specifically for pesticides, heavy metals, even mycotoxins. We don't have regulations on a lot of the food and supplements that we eat. So I think it's kind of just getting through the cracks in that sense.
But we don't rely on just the fact that it's organic and grown organically. The third-party testing is extremely important. If it's not transparent, if you can't go on someone's website and see their COAs to know that it's been third-party tested and that it's recent and that it covers everything, that they're not skipping some stuff, then I wouldn't take those products because of how much they absorb everything. All of our farmers, the people that grow our mushrooms for us, know that we're going to be third-party testing it. So they're curious, how did they come out? Because they're trying to do everything right, but it doesn't mean that things don't slip into their processes, and they'd want to know about it. And I want to give a shout out, if it's okay, to one of our growers. We have lots of growers, but I think they deserve it because people like Eric at Main Cap and Stem have been doing this for a while and really trying to support U.S. growers and grow that throughout the United States. And we are lucky to know him and get mushrooms from him in Maine, and he does an amazing job.
So then where does your chaga come from? If the chaga has to grow on the birch tree, where are all the birch trees that have the chaga?
Ken was talking about how chaga was popular in Russia, Romania. So that part of the world, that was really where chaga had its claim to fame. So any climate that has high altitude with large concentrations of birch trees, because there's a greater probability that the mushroom can basically infect another tree that's nearby. So here in the United States, we've seen the Northwest on the West Coast. We've seen on the East Coast, we've seen Maine, Vermont. Maine is where we source our chaga currently. So I have a good relationship that I've had for probably about the last decade of my life. It's an older couple. They own just under 300 acres, and they're retired now. And basically all they do is they take care of their land. Chaga is his thing. There's a real science behind it, and people have been trying for the last probably 3 decades, trying to replicate this environment indoors with no success.
So I just want to take it back a second. So all of your mushrooms come from the United States and are grown here and are third-party tested. You mentioned something, Roger, that I think we should reflect upon, because I'm not sure our listeners are aware of all the different parts of the mushroom that can be used in mushroom supplements. You talked about the fruiting bodies, which is the name of your company, and the mycelium. Do you want to talk about the different parts of the mushroom and why you would use a certain part over a different part in your products?
So there's a fruiting body and there's the mycelium portion. So when, to keep it simple, people are used to seeing a stem with a cap as their mushroom. So that's really basically the sexual organ of the organism itself. So that's what we call a fruiting body. And then the mycelium, you can think of it like the underground roots or the network that exists underneath what you see as the fruiting body itself. So there's an underground network So within 1 square inch, I believe there's almost 800 miles of interconnected channels and tubes. So what these do is the mycelium itself is a network, basically a nutrient transporting or water transporting delivery system. It stores nutrients, it stores water. Some mycelium lives in symbiotic relationship with plants and trees. It's what we call mycorrhizal fungi. And basically, they're an extension of the root system that exists for that tree or that plant. So the mycelium feeds off of sugars from the plant, and then in return, the mycelium attaches to the roots of that plant and creates an extension of basically like its nervous system. It can hold water for the plants of the trees. It can hold nutrients. It can communicate with other trees through the mycelium. It's very fascinating, and that's really just the tip of the iceberg. But for products, we utilize fruiting bodies currently, only 100% fruiting bodies, because the research currently dictates that the fruiting bodies contain anywhere from 5 upwards of almost 50 times more bioactive compounds in the fruiting body versus the mycelium. And the reason that companies use mycelium is because it's basically a cheaper alternative. You don't need a second warehouse to then grow the mushrooms on that mycelium. You're just basically inoculating. Mushrooms are grown, for people that don't know, mushrooms are usually grown indoors. They're cultivated indoors in these plastic polypropylene bags. And the bag is filled with either hardwood sawdust or a grain. And then it's injected with the liquid mycelium or spores of that variety. And then basically that grows and eats all of the nutrients that are within that bag. And unfortunately, there's no way to separate the mycelium from the grain itself. And the mycelium actually eats and uses that nutrient basis from the grains or the sawdust that's in there. And unfortunately, that's what's being extracted by a lot of these larger companies. They're extracting grains, they're extracting leftover sawdust that has mycelium in it, but nowhere near the concentrations that these fruiting bodies have.
Fascinating.
It's a little.
Yeah,
Go for it, Ken.
I was just going to say that the mycelium on grain, which is how most mycelium products are grown these days because of money, is 95% grain and 5% mycelium. So even if there are benefits, which there may be benefits in mycelium, and with further research, we may find that mycelium has some active compounds in higher amounts than some of them than fruiting bodies possibly. The problem is the technology to grow it right now isn't there. The cost is, if we could grow mycelium in a bioreactor, for example, or some other form that's not on grain, where we could literally just get a mat of mycelium and test that and that to a product with the fruiting body, we might have some benefits. But right now, it's cost prohibitive for people to grow mycelium in something like that. And there are people researching this and working on it to find different ways to grow mycelium. But at this point, the products on the market today in the United States that have mycelium are 95% grain. And so that's another thing when we're educating people. Check. Is it a fruiting body? Is it a mycelium? Is it a combination? And if it's a combination, are they just drying, like some companies we know just take the entire thing, the mycelium and the fruiting bodies and the grain, all of it, and ask specifics? If they say it's an extraction, then you want to know, okay, how was it extracted, so that you know what actually that extraction contains. And we can get more into that. But that's,
Okay, so really quick, so your products are the fruiting body of the mushroom, not any mycelium,
Or a growing medium.
or growing medium, and they are grown here in the United States. They are third-party tested. Before we move on to how you extract from the mushrooms, which I think is fascinating, Missy wants to ask you about the mushroom coffee.
So, like, on social media, I think it was like last year or the year before, like everywhere is popping up all over, like, you got to try mushroom coffee. Mushroom coffee is so great. It's good. It's got, and it lists all the, the lion's mane and what have you. So, of course, I buy some. And they have these recommendations on how to make it taste better. Guys, I couldn't, it was so gross. And there was no amount of sugar, which personally I don't like to put into my coffee. I drink my coffee black. There was nothing, no milks, no sweeteners that I could put in there to make it taste better. What's going on with that?
I will on
That's-
on one note I want to touch on real quick something Ken said. So the only mushroom right now that people are really making the debate for pure mycelium, I would argue would be lion's mane. So there have been a few studies that have come out that have shown lion's mane mycelium to have higher concentrations of that nerve growth factor and actually stimulating that. The same compounds exist in the fruiting bodies, and I would say that's probably the only mushroom that people are really making maybe an argument for in that respect. Unfortunately, just the methods haven't caught up yet. But on the mushroom coffee, unfortunately, a lot of these companies are taking advantage of the whole trendy kind of mushroom supplement, you know, excitement that's going on right now, if you will. And because of that, they're importing cheaper extracts, or a cheaper product and just maybe using an actual just dried mushroom. There are some good ones out there, not knocking mushroom coffee entirely whatsoever. But companies are either using a powder or they're using an extract powder. And like Ken was mentioning before, these different extract powders are coming in from overseas where the regulations aren't there. Um, and unfortunately, they're falling into that USDA organic loophole. So it's mostly an imported product. But they're adding maltodextrin to
Ugh.
yeah. So if you know anything about maltodextrin, it causes all sorts of
Yeah.
nasty problems in the body. It's a weird
Yep.
sugar molecule.
Yep.
But what they do is they add this to the mushroom extract powder so that it's not as sticky. So some of these mushroom extracts, when you get it down and you remove all of the liquid, they're hygroscopic, so they pull in moisture from the environment very readily,
Yeah.
extremely fast. And maltodextrin is their kind of workaround. So they basically add a lot of maltodextrin, basically keeps it shelf stable, if you will. And a lot of companies will actually not disclose whether there's maltodextrin in it or not. So these companies that are using
Oh, really? It wouldn't
mushrooms,
even necessarily be on the ingredient list.
yeah, they don't have to. But I would say that it's your best bet and the safest bet I would say would be a tincture. Tinctures are usually very easy for people to take. If you're already drinking coffee and you enjoy your coffee, coffee does not taste like mushroom coffee whatsoever. Have never had an experience of trying a
I
mushroom
don't know why they
coffee.
call it coffee. There's nothing
I think
about
it's
it that-
people looking for an alternative, and it's like
Yeah.
I enjoy coffee. I'm not a caffeine person. I love the taste of coffee. I think everything can be brought to that level of an art or a craft, and coffee's no exception to that. So trying to replace
Agreed.
people's coffee with something that does not taste like coffee just doesn't seem like I don't know, it doesn't seem like an effective method for getting people to switch over.
Can you put your tincture in the coffee? What would you
Yes,
put your tincture
exactly.
in?
I was
Is it-
just going to say, yeah, we have cafes that are actually offer our tinctures for their customers, like an add-on for $1, and they get whichever tincture they want in their favorite drink or beverage.
Like a boost.
Yeah,
There you go, Missy. You're going to make your own mushroom coffee.
Well,
I'm going
that's
to send
what
you
a
the
lot of people-
tinctures.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are doing. That's what I recommend is get a really good extracted product, and some people are putting their like a piece of the chocolate in and melting it so they
Ooh,
get,
that's
because
a good
our
idea.
chocolate is made with coconut sugar, so it's low glycemic, but it's still incredible cacao, delicious if you've tasted it.
Yeah.
And you add that, like melt that in your coffee, you get a concentrated dose of lion's mane, reishi, and cordyceps, whichever one in combination that you would like, along with some really delicious chocolate in your coffee, or you just do
I
the
want to try that.
tincture.
I want to try
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you want
So
to
that-
talk? Do you want to talk a little bit about your gummies and your chocolate and your tinctures? Your gummies, first of all, which were your newer item. Your gummies are fabulous. Like they taste so good. It's hard just to eat the dosage, the two little gummies. And the chocolate's dark chocolate. It's great. I mean,
good.
I like that
Chocolate's
too.
good.
Yeah. Tell us about your products and the strength of them.
So I would say maybe before I get into that, explain a little bit about the extraction methods, because I think that will help kind of differentiate the products themselves. So what we do is we start with our dried mushrooms, and they go into our extraction apparatus. It's called a sock slit extraction. So it's basically this closed glass column that the mushrooms go in, and there's a boiling flask on the bottom, and we use water and organic alcohol, like an ethanol. We use 190 proof organic cane sugar alcohol for our extractions. And it's really important that your mushrooms are what we call dual extracted. So dual extracted, all that means is that they're doing a water extraction and an alcohol extraction. And then you usually combine those two to where the alcohol level reaches at least 20 to 25%. We set ours at 30% just because there's research helps to kind of dictate that because of the fact that you have more of the alcohol soluble compounds that are in it. So we do a water and an alcohol extraction. And what
Do you
happens
want to
is,
explain why that's important to do both? Because some
yeah,
companies only do the water and they leave out the alcohol, or some leave out both. But yeah, if you want to
yeah,
explain
these companies are missing out on, they're basically throwing away, a part of their mushroom that they should be extracting. There's compounds. Lion's mane is a great example of this. It needs an alcohol extraction. The compounds that you want from lion's mane are in the alcohol extraction, not necessarily the water extraction. There's still beneficial compounds in the water. The polysaccharides, all of that's getting thrown into the water. So water is a great base extraction for mushrooms, but adding the alcohol extraction is very important. And like Ken was saying, a lot of companies will do one or the other. Some companies just do water extractions, and then they sell that extract powder, and it's missing all of the what I would consider. I think polysaccharides are great, the water extractions are great, but the alcohol extraction from mushrooms is really where a lot of the beneficial compounds come from for the specific instances, or where each specific mushroom really shines. So we
right,
take
like turkey tail and chaga, like some of those, like some of the compounds that we've talked about that are helping with cancer, all of that, and reishi, the triterpenes, all of those have to come out through an alcohol extraction. You won't get the polysaccharides, obviously the beta glucans and the immune modulators from the water, but the alcohol, like Roger said, that is essential, or you're
you're
losing
missing a
out.
lot from not getting those components. So we do both extractions, water and alcohol, and then they get mixed together in the right concentrations. And then we really pride ourselves in is using ultrasonic technology. It renders that molecule even smaller. So over more surface area, so maybe your gut lining or where the mushrooms are actually being absorbed in your body when you take the product, over the surface area, there's more points of contact that the compounds can touch your body, so that it's more readily absorbed and easily absorbed by your body.
Great.
So most products that don't do this extra process, you're only absorbing a small percent. Even if they do the dual extraction, you still only get to absorb so much. So it's less potent. You're getting less of the benefit. So that's one thing that's important. The other thing I want to say is there are some companies out there that totally skip the dual extraction, and all they do is the ultrasonic, and again they miss out on a lot. I think they've taken that maybe because some cannabis products you can get away with that, but with mushrooms you have to have the dual extraction before, in order for you to get the benefits from the ultrasonic. So all three are important, and if you skip any one of those, you lose out on a lot of benefits.
Okay, that's helpful to know. So, water extraction, alcohol extraction, and then that sonic treatment to make it more absorbable.
Exactly.
Talk to us about dosing then. How do we dose your mushrooms?
So everyone's different in that respect. But once we go through that water, alcohol, and then ultrasonic process, we're left with basically our end result, our end tincture. So a tincture is basically a mushroom or herbal substance that has been extracted or infused into the water and the alcohol keeps it shelf stable. We recommend people take anywhere from 2 to 4 milliliters of the extract daily, depending on what they're dealing with. I would say if somebody's really using lion's mane, for instance, for neuropathy or dementia or something along those lines that might be a little more serious, then we usually recommend them taking that mushroom breakfast, lunch, dinner 3 times a day, making sure that your body is basically flooded with how many or all the compounds that you could basically get. because they're not harmful in that respect, unless, like Ken was mentioning before, maybe you're on blood thinners. Cordyceps is really the only one that people really need to be a little cautious of, and it's not necessarily, you're not going to end up in the emergency room. It'll just, it'll render short term, it'll render the medication either weaker or stronger, which is why we always recommend you talk to your physician if they are on blood thinners. But other than that, and for specific instances, it's usually between 2 to 4 milliliters daily for the tincture. Morning and night is usually what I do with my tinctures. At the very least, at least once a day. We haven't really seen much of a difference when it comes to the body weight, especially because they're safe. So with children, we usually are recommending that same 2 to 4 milliliters. Why we developed the chocolates and the gummies would be for different carrier methods. If somebody is either very, very sensitive to alcohol or can't have alcohol whatsoever, the chocolates and gummies are great because they're void of actual alcohol. It's basically been evaporated off, and you're left with just a concentration of those bioactive compounds.
So but with the tincture, there's a small amount of alcohol in there, is what you're saying?
Yeah, so the tinctures are about 30% alcohol by volume. So if you take it straight, you're gonna know it's gonna taste like maybe vodka or something like that. It's not it's not unpalatable, and I would argue that the soxhlet extractions make it very palatable. Like none of the mushroom products we have taste like you're not gonna take a drop or be like that's disgusting. But if you're sensitive to alcohol, the chocolates and gummies are great, but the chocolates and gummies are also stronger. So if you take what we call one dose, like that 2 milliliters of our tincture, if you eat one chocolate square, that's like taking 10 milliliters of the tincture. So it's five times stronger, more concentrated than the tincture itself. And that was developed and formulated with this thought process in mind, the fact that these mushrooms are underdosed. Our tinctures are already dosed higher than arguably a lot of the stuff that's on the market, so people are experiencing great benefits. But if you need that kind of instantaneous kick or boost, if you will, the concentrate products are very nice. And I would say that the chocolate, one of the real benefits of chocolate too, chocolate's a vasodilator naturally. So not only is it kind of increasing the dilation or the vascularity of your veins itself to helping more blood flow to get through the body, in short, it's then utilizing that pathway and getting the mushrooms to go through the body even faster. So I've noticed, and other people have noticed, that when they take the chocolate, it usually kicks in a little bit faster.
Yeah, and I'd like to share. So I take all the tinctures, the 5, in my morning coffee. And then during the day, if I need more focus, more concentration, more energy, or more relaxation, depending on what I'm feeling or needing, I'll either take the chocolate or the gummies. If I need it, or if I'm working out, or I'm going to do some physical activity, whatever it is, I will have these with me during the day for those kind of things. And we also have something called Synergy, which has 7 mushrooms in it. And the only time I take that, because I start feeling like something is coming on, something in my throat or whatever, I might be coming down with something, then I'll take the whole Synergy bottle and I'll drink half the bottle, and I'll do that for 2 or 3 nights in a row. And Roger can tell you, I finally got sick for the first time in years, like last month. I've rarely ever gotten sick, and the Synergy, so like taking these daily, and then the tinctures, the gummies and chocolate when I need it, and then the high dose of Synergy just at night when I start feeling like something's coming down. I never like it.
Wow.
Within the next day when I wake up, I already feel better, and I usually take it 1 or 2 more nights just to make sure. Other than the blood thinner that we talked about, you can't take too much. So each dose of each square of chocolate and each gummy is specifically dosed, like very carefully, to have 5 times the strength, the dose of a regular tincture. And our tincture, I'll say, like Roger said, is pretty much quite a bit stronger than most of them already on the market, because Roger doesn't skip. That was one of the things from the beginning. Like, it costs a lot. Like, how many pounds, Roger, how many pounds of fresh mushrooms, let's say, let's take lion's mane, for example. Like, how many pounds of fresh lion's mane mushrooms go into making one gummy?
Each square, whether it's the gummy or the chocolate, each square is equivalent to an extracted version of about 5 grams dried of the mushrooms. And to put that into perspective, so 1 pound of everything we extract and we utilize on a production basis is dried weight. So 1 pound of dried mushrooms, so lion's mane, for example, would be about 10 pounds of fresh lion's mane. So mushrooms are about 90% water by weight. They're mostly water. For instance, like a pound of, or 1 gallon of our tincture, has pounds, like anywhere from, depending on the mushroom, anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds of that mushroom in it, dried, which is more like 30 to 50 pounds of that mushroom when it's wet.
So it's pretty, it's rare to find a product of what Roger has been making and doing.
Thank you. I love your products, so I think that they're phenomenal. And everyone who tries them seems to love them too, and I'll send them to my sister as well. So I could talk to you guys all day about all of this, and I'm sure Missy could too, because her major was in landscape architecture with a specialty in soil science, and yeah,
we could. In environmental studies, and I'm a regenerative agriculture crazy fan, so right. I've been loving hearing all the science. It's so fun. Ken, if you would, we'd love to ask you our closing questions that we like to ask all of our guests. The first one, of course, being if you could have our listeners leave today with one easy action item, what would that be?
I would say, if you're interested, because we're talking about mushrooms and functional mushrooms.
Great.
If you're interested in functional mushrooms, be curious and do your research. Know what you're putting in your body. Don't just be carried away with some fancy advertising. Ask the questions. If you're not sure, and if you're not satisfied with the answers, then go somewhere else. Ask the questions, but just be curious, because it matters what you put in your body, and especially when it comes to mushrooms.
Thank you. And here at Digestible, we like to say, don't panic, just pivot. Have you ever made a small change that has made a big difference? And would you share that with us?
All the time?
Yeah, that's great.
The pivot is like really listening to my own body and self, and becoming self-aware and curious also, so that I stay curious and open-minded and love-based versus fear-based and protective. And I think, like, when fear comes up, like, be curious and listen, and be kind to those parts, and then bring love into it. And because fear becomes like a selfish, like, closed off protective thing, and love, gratitude, joy, passion, like, all that expands and allows you to serve, to want to bring more of that to the world and to the people in your lives. And then I'd say, like, and then surround yourself with amazing people. Like, I get to work with Roger every day, so being around people you really, really enjoy and get to learn from, and all that. So I don't know,
those are great words to live by. Thank you so much for being here with us today and for your time. It's so appreciated.
Thanks for tuning back into the Digestible podcast with our returning guests, Ken and Roger of Fruiting Bodies. Don't forget to use the coupon code DIGESTIBLE20, all uppercase, in your first order at fruitingbodies.co. We hope you'll share us with others if you like today's podcast. It's the best compliment you can give us. You can also send us feedback and questions at info@digestiblestrategies.com. We look forward to hearing from you. And remember, don't panic, just pivot.